Where do your items go when you toss them into the recycling bin? Does recycling actually help save the planet, or is it all a scam? These were questions I heard many of my friends ask, questions that I would get answers to by phoning a friend.
Hello, and welcome to the Jazz About Nature podcast, the show where I chat about all things related to the environment. I'm here today with Jenna Galindo. She spends her time taking gorgeous nature photos, portraits, and events for her business, Jenna Galindo Photography. She also has previous experience working in the waste management and recycling industry, and I want to talk a little bit more about that today.
Experience is actually, I think, fairly limited, especially compared to so many people in the industry that make a career out of it. I went in definitely knowing that this was not going to be my career, but it was a great opportunity at the time, helped me save money to get out of state, start my photography business, and kind of just get things off the ground for me. But I was there for 4 years at a waste and recycling transfer station. And the first 2 years was pretty basic. I was actually a scale house attendant, so a lot of just interacting with the customers, going in and out, all that. I did do a lot of community outreach, particularly in schools.
That's awesome.
But yeah, no, so everybody kind of knew their role, but I think looking at the grander picture of what we did was kind of lost on a lot of people. I did learn a lot more about the industry and what our station did. 2.5 years about. So I just kind of started asking some questions on my downtime and spare time when I wasn't in the way of anybody, just figuring out what the heck we do. So our main thing was cities primarily were contracted with us to bring in all their trash and recycling. And oftentimes we did have many residents just bring stuff in on their own as you would a regular dump, just going and paying your fee kind of thing. All by weight because of our transfer station, so prices varied depending on how heavy everything was by the ton. A lot of it was stuff that was just going to go to the landfill. We had trucks in and out all day that was just transferring just regular waste that would go to a landfill all day long, all week long, constantly. And then the recycling materials, we would have sorters hand sort. A lot of these recycling materials consist of things like paper, plastics, some metal, like aluminum primarily, but a lot more things than you would have thought were not very recyclable and had to go to the landfill, primarily in our area. Recycling really sometimes depends on your area and what the different plants and processing centers can handle. Living in a smaller county, we had more limited options. Sort our recycled materials, they'd be baled, and after we got a certain bale count, like let's say 40 bales or something, we would have a large enough bale to have a load picked up. So what we would do is we would send out these bids to different recycling companies that would recycle that kind of item. And those were just kind of things that people we came in touch with over the years and just tried to stay up to date on. So if we were sending out paper did actually pretty darn well recycling-wise. So we would send out a bid for paper. We would let them know what the tonnage was per bale and how many bales we had. We'd send them pictures of what the material looked like. That was the big thing, was we had a really good kind of cleanliness rate. For every recyclable material that's shipped out, there's kind of a percentage that you have to meet that is clean and not contaminated. And we had a very low level of contamination. And we had a very small plant, but considering, we only had about, 10 sorters or something on the line. Everybody worked very, very hard, and we always did a really good job of that. But, a lot of people automated areas, which you can find more on, just videos on YouTube. If you look up transfer stations, there's a lot of great information on there, and a lot of them are much more completely automated with a very small amount of hand sorting. So it's something that's kind of going out now. One of those towns, for instance, started integrating more organic recycling. In their minds, they wanted to start recycling more pizza boxes. But it's kind of hard because pizza boxes tend to have a lot of grease on them. And food grease is another thing. And the hard thing about all of this in reality, we could go into how we need to try to keep everything clean and everything, but just industry-wise, the reason real reason why this all is very important is because these businesses are buying them. And so it comes down to how valuable they are sometimes. And it really is easier to sell a product when it's good.
Yeah, it's not covered in pizza grease.
When it's not covered in pizza grease, I know that like recycling napkins and stuff, it was kind of this was all kind of going into composted waste. I think is actually what they called it. It was something that we were kind of just trying to get into when I was leaving. And it was hard because only one town was doing it, other towns didn't care. So it was really just kind of the best we could with what we had, limited resources and all. I think some people are surprised by what you can recycle, and then people are surprised by what they can't recycle. Styrofoam is probably the least recyclable material in the world. However, there's efforts to make it so that they can recycle it. Like there's more science going into it where people are figuring out how to change the formula, or not even just change the formula, but take an item and find a new way to chemically break it down so that it can be, kind of chemically reconstructed to be used again. However, that is very new technology. That's very, very new technology. It's not something that the towns will probably be looking into anytime soon. So at this time, we're still, styrofoam is completely pretty much unrecyclable. And there's no market value for it, so it will go kind of straight into the landfill. Other things like washers, dryers, refrigerators, it depends, again, on your facility. It depends on your area and what they can do. Ours were recycled. They went to a metal company that we had contracted with us who would pick up things weekly like that. Things like the aluminum cans. We actually didn't get very much of. Living in California, you can hold on to your aluminum cans and your water bottles, and you can redeem them for cash. Mm-hmm. And so that's what a lot of people would do. So we really didn't get very much. We probably only did aluminum cans probably about, I don't know, every 6 months or so. Possibly it was not very often. There were some things that were sold weekly or bi-weekly. So as waiting for something for months was a big deal.
Yeah.
They always sold very well, but they weren't actually a big deal with our company because they didn't sell often. So it didn't matter that it had a good price because it didn't sell often enough and we didn't get enough of it in. So it actually wasn't, what most people would think, you would make a lot of money off of. It wasn't a good income for our business. Aluminum is so recyclable. You can just recycle it. I don't remember how many thousands of times. I think it's kind of, for the most part, infinite. But that's the thing. Most people will just go and redeem them themselves. They'll hold on to their aluminum cans. They'll go redeem them at a center for that, where somebody will usually pay you in cash, or either the weight or the number of cans, however many you have. I think it's after a certain bag full or something like that they just kind of do it by weight. And if it's just a few, they'll just count them. But many people will just simply redeem themselves, which is why they don't actually, too often, at least in our area, end up in the system. So it's actually a good thing for the environment. And that's kind of the devil with the industry is, when things are kind of going well and people are recycling properly and there's other ways to recycle without taking things to the landfill, or if there's ways to recycle without sending them out of the country and just shipping them away, then I think the industry as it is right now suffers. And I think we saw a lot of that last year. But I just kind of look on the positive side about it. It means we're moving forward and change is on the horizon.
The majority of Americans do not recycle things properly. There was an article published last year in National Geographic about the planet's recycling ending up in landfills. It was shared that the vast majority, about 79%, is accumulating in landfills or sloughing off into the natural environment as litter, meaning at some point, much of it ends up in the oceans, the final sink. If present trends continue, by 2050, there will be 12 billion metric tons of plastic in landfills. According to Waste Management, an American trash collecting company, in a MyGart article last year, the average recycling contamination rate, or disposal of trash or recyclables in the wrong recycling bin, is about 25% for Americans, meaning 1 in 4 items thrown in a recycling bin isn't recyclable.
I do recommend contacting your local city to see what's available. our states are different too. I've had so many people move to our area where I worked, and things were always very, very different from where they were before.
There's also the issue of illegal dumping. I've had many friends talk about illegal dumping, and these were mostly the friends who lived in more rural areas. Illegal dumping, or dumping of waste illegally instead of using authorized methods such as curbside collection or using an authorized rubbish dump, is the illegal deposit of any waste onto land, including waste dumped or tipped on a site with no license to accept waste. And the reason why you don't want to do this is because about 1 gallon of oil can actually contaminate 1 million gallons of water, or the equivalent to a year's supply of water for 50 people. It ruins crops and soil, and these dump sites actually breed grounds for mosquitoes and other insects, bugs, and wild animals to gather. And a lot of these insects and bugs and animals can spread harmful diseases. And on top of all that, you can get fined if you're caught. But many people still dump illegally anyway.
Well, I mean, first of all, it's just bad. Don't do it. Like, be a decent human being and be responsible for your own stuff. I think what it really came down to was, like I said, when people dropped off stuff, it would be by weight. There'd be certain things that aren't like surcharges. We'd get a lot of tires to drop off. At the facility I worked at would be $3 a car tire. So if you had 4 of them, they'd have to be $12. That's not really something that would really break the bank, but we had a lot of people who, I guess, really like to bargain or just not have to pay at all. So they just would dump it in our fields. And, not only is that bad contamination to the soil and everything like that, but more often than not, just because they're in plastic bags and they were usually somewhat protected, it was just rude. Don't dump on other people's property. What happens is it becomes that other person's problem. Now it's their expense, and I think a lot of people don't care about that, which is a shame. And if you're just kind of a crummy human being, there's not really much I can say to discourage you. But I think, even if you're gonna, I don't know, be a bad person, like, I kind of wish people would do their research. Our facility used to charge for mattresses, but then we got on a program called Bye Bye Mattress. And so we were able to then take mattresses for free, no matter what, even if they were dirty, even if they had bed bugs, whatever. I mean, the bed bugs we couldn't really take back to the facility, but we were very true to the fact that we took all mattresses, minus businesses. There were hotels that would try to bring 200 mattresses or something. Whoa. And at that point, they were charged trash anyway, because there were some things in our area that just excluded businesses. But for the most part, if you get a mattress on the side of the road, it would kind of peeve me quite a bit afterwards after that went through, because I'm like, if people just knew they could go dump this for free, it wouldn't be such a big deal. And I remember one time I also saw a TV just halfway in the mud in our field, and it was another thing that kind of peeved me off, because we at our facility took TVs for free, no charge.
Wow.
So they could have just dropped it there again. And it's, it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, obviously you're kind of like probably a crummy human being. You don't care. Maybe just the price. It's just that you don't want to put in the effort to do any of the research or anything. But if you ever, come across such a thing, depending on what's available in your area, this could probably be like a really simple solution.
Sounds like people are not very educated, or they don't care, enough to recycle or dispose of their waste properly. What advice do you have for anyone who actually wants to start recycling in their own home?
I mean, I think it comes down to your lifestyle. For us, one thing that was really big in California was we did go and redeem bottles as we could. Our water was not good in our area. We actually had a well. It was very, very hard water. It was not something you wanted to drink. But moving here, I decided, like, our water in the sink is good. It tastes fine. It's kind of tastes pretty good, actually. And so if you have a good water source, in your home, I would really recommend, like, maybe going to Walmart and getting, like, some plastic bottles that are reusable. I bought 8 plastic bottles a few months ago. We knew that our water was good, and I wanted to stop using plastic bottles. I live in Texas now, so finding a redemption center is not a thing. And finding a place to properly recycle it is a little more challenging, especially if you're using that as your only water source. So, I went to Walmart, got 8 bottles, spent $8. They were $1 a piece. And, that was like nothing. So I was like, great. And they've been going great for months. And so actually, I'm sure I've saved a bunch of money because water bottles in California were very expensive. So, just using my water that we get from the well out here and using $8 bottles, we've saved so much money. I think that was like a really simple thing if you have good water. You bought a reusable metal straw, and it's something that you keep in your purse with like a little case or something, and it's super simple and it's super easy to clean. And I think those are like little things. Something that's going on right now is, California's trying to ban plastic straws, and a lot of people are having a fit about it. But it's actually, we actually went into this at work too. The reason for this is really that, a lot of the stuff is sorted. Plastic straws are a very small piece of plastic that can get overlooked. And if you think about it, if you are a person that, goes out to eat once, twice a day, maybe even more. I remember my mom used to go and get like 8 Starbucks a day. That was 8 straws just with her straw. Just with her Starbucks. Not including, if she went out to a restaurant and had a straw, and then your straw breaks or something like that and you get another straw. Now these are, it's not a big deal, but then think about 1 million people doing that, like in the course of a day, you could be using 3 million straws. Think about what 3 million straws could look like. That's can be substantial. So it's really just one of those things that it's literally something very small you can do to make a difference. And so that's why they were trying to ban the straws, is because it was just a small thing to try to wean people away from plastics. Because there's a lot of different kinds of plastics, so therefore it can be kind of hard to identify sometimes and recycle. And it was just something to try to wean people off of plastic a little bit, and something small that actually does make a big difference when combined. So even if you just cut down on 1 straw a day, it's like, if a million other people did that, just 1 straw a day, because it's not completely illegal at this point. I know they're trying to get to that. It wasn't that way in the beginning, as you see, like you really do see how they were trying to like wean people off of it.
So there's actually a reason why there's not a flat-out ban of plastic straws. Single-use plastics are among the top pollutants on the earth and in our oceans. Avoiding plastic straws and other single-use plastic products is a stepping stone to decrease such waste. However, people with mobility issues and strength issues where they can't lift up cups high enough to drink them need straws. In some cases, they may need to sip hot liquids like soup and can be burned by compostable or metal straws. I have seen some thicker reusable plastic straws out there, but many of those straws can't handle the hotter temperatures either. The solution? Shift from banning straws to pressuring the manufacturers and corporations to create an environmentally and disability-friendly alternative.
That's really amazing advice. Hearing more about how we can take those initial steps to sort of impact our world in a positive way is really great. Was there anything else that you wanted to add or share with the listeners before we conclude our conversation today?
Yeah, I gave a couple examples of, ways that you can cut down on plastic, because plastic is kind of the hardest thing. A water bottle is made up of 2 or 3 types of plastic. You have the plastic in the clear portion of the bottle, you have the plastic cap, and then sometimes that plastic ring below the cap is sometimes a different plastic too. And then different brands of water only use different kinds sometimes. So it's something that can be difficult to recycle. It's kind of why people are going after plastic right now. But, if you want to look into other ways that you can be a little more green, start recycling in a small way, there's recycle.ca.gov is a great resource for California to go and, kind of do your own research. I always say to people, just do your own research and see what works for you. A website I used to really enjoy was also Earth 911. And I think it was just earth911.com. It was pretty simple, but if you just Google Earth 911, I know it'll pop up. Some things were a little more extreme than others, but then there was also a lot of really friendly little easy ways to make some changes in your life. And if you wanted to go for more things like taking out, your shampoo bottles or something and replacing them with something else, that's kind of the website for it. It's just kind of like a great little place to get some ideas. all fun. So we can all try to do a little something that will help, actually. It really will.
Well, I want to thank you again today for chatting with me, and I hope to chat with you again soon.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. And yeah, hope I'm invited back sometime.
You can check out the show notes for more information on how you can better reduce, reuse, and recycle materials and properly discard of waste. You can also message me if you or someone you know would like to be on the show and share their insight on the environment, diversity, nature, and the outdoors, or other relevant topics. Just remember that no matter what you do, you should always think globally and act locally.